You were not placed in this moment by accident. You feel it, don't you? Something is shifting. Something is moving beneath the surface of the world. And while others scroll past it, laugh past it, ignore it, you feel it in your chest. You feel it in your sleep. You feel it in the silence between conversations. You are not ordinary. You never have been. While the world reacts to headlines, you react to atmospheres. While the crowd waits for proof, you sense it before proof exists. That is not imagination. That is not anxiety. That is awareness. Chosen one, you are living through a global spiritual shift. Light is separating from darkness. Truth is confronting illusion. And only certain souls can feel the tremors before the earthquake. You are one of them. There are 9 signs you are a high-demand soul navigating this shift. Not everyone will recognize these signs. Only those marked will feel them resonate. If this message finds you at the right moment, that is not coincidence. That is alignment. Stay with this. Lean in. Because what you are experiencing is confirmation, not confusion. And as you listen, you will recognize yourself. You will remember who you are. If this speaks to your spirit, anchor yourself here. Commit to the journey. Because what is unfolding cannot be navigated casually. First, you feel the shift before it happens. The atmosphere speaks to you first. Have you noticed before the news breaks, before the argument erupts, before the system shakes? You already sensed it. A pressure, a heaviness, a stirring in the unseen. You walk into rooms and feel tension no one has named yet. You scroll through the world and feel unrest before it trends. You wake up with a weight you cannot logically explain. That is not fragility. That is prophetic calibration. You are sensitive because you are tuned in. While others are distracted, your spirit is scanning. While others are entertained, your discernment is activated. You don't follow trends. You detect tremors. You feel collective anxiety like distant thunder. You sense spiritual warfare before it manifests physically. And let me tell you something. This likely made you feel different growing up. Overwhelmed, misunderstood. Maybe they called you dramatic. Maybe they told you that you think too much. Maybe they dismissed your instincts. But time after time you were right. You felt the shift before the collapse. You sensed the betrayal before the reveal. You knew the opportunity before the invitation arrived. That was not luck. That was assignment. High-demand souls are early detectors. You are wired to read atmospheres because you are sent to navigate them. Listen carefully. The enemy tries to convince you that your sensitivity is weakness, but darkness fears those who can see it coming. Darkness thrives on surprise, and you are not easily surprised. That is why warfare increases around you when the world destabilizes. Because your awareness threatens hidden agendas. Because your clarity exposes illusion. You feel the shift early because you are positioned ahead of the curve, ahead of the noise, ahead of the panic. This is why isolation has been part of your journey. You needed silence to sharpen discernment. You needed solitude to strengthen perception. You were not being rejected. You were being refined. You are not anxious. You are alert. You are not overwhelmed. You are activated. And as this global shift accelerates, your role will become clearer. What you sense now is preparation. What you feel now is positioning. Stand firm in it. Trust it. Because if this is the first sign, the next revelation will go deeper. Second, crowds drain you because your frequency was never designed for the ordinary. You have felt this your whole life. The noise exhausts you. The shallow conversations leave you empty. The constant laughter over nothing makes you feel like you are suffocating. And you have asked yourself quietly, why can't I just enjoy this like everyone else? Listen carefully. It is not arrogance. It is not social anxiety. It is not superiority. It is separation. When you sit in a crowded room, you feel everything. The insecurity behind the smiles, the competition hidden in compliments, the fear disguised as confidence. You read energy faster than words, and that awareness costs you strength. While others feed off attention, you lose energy in it. While others chase stimulation, you crave substance. You hunger for depth. You long for conversations about purpose, destiny, truth. But the world celebrates distraction. Endless scrolling, endless noise, endless surface, and your spirit resists it. You have tried to force yourself to fit. You have tried to laugh at what did not move you. You have tried to shrink your intensity to make others comfortable. But every time you compromise your depth, you feel misaligned. That is not dysfunction, that is calibration. High-demand souls are not built for constant access. You are not meant to be consumed casually. You are not meant to blend into every room. Isolation was not punishment, it was protection. When certain friendships faded, you thought you were losing connection, but you were being preserved. When invitations stopped, you thought you were being rejected, but you were being filtered. Darkness thrives in crowds because crowds dilute discernment. But you were never meant to be diluted. You were meant to be concentrated, focused, set apart. Have you noticed? The more the world accelerates into chaos, the more your circle shrinks. The louder society becomes, the quieter your spirit demands to be. That is not loneliness. That is alignment. Favor often looks like isolation before it looks like elevation. You are not drained because you are weak. You are drained because you are absorbing what others ignore, and your energy is too valuable to scatter. The enemy wants you exhausted, overstimulated, spiritually numb, but your anointing requires clarity. It requires stillness. It requires separation from what is common. You feel out of place because you are out of category. You feel different because you are. Chosen is not comfortable. Chosen is consecrated. And consecration requires distance from what cannot carry your next level. Stand firm in your separation. Stop apologizing for your depth. Stop forcing connection where there is no resonance. You are not antisocial, you are assigned. And as this global spiritual shift intensifies environments that once tolerated, you will begin to reject you. Do not panic. That is filtration. That is elevation. That is destiny narrowing the path so you cannot wander. You are being positioned. You are being refined. You are being guarded for something weightier than popularity. And if this is only the second sign, what comes next will challenge you even deeper. Third, your life intensifies when global chaos intensifies. Have you noticed it? When the world starts shaking, you do not shut down. You wake up. When systems tremble, when headlines scream, when fear spreads like wildfire, something in you becomes still, alert, sharp. While others spiral into panic, your mind clears. While others freeze, you focus. That is not emotional detachment. That is spiritual design. You were built for pressure. You were trained in hidden seasons for unstable times. Every private battle you fought prepared your nervous system for public turbulence. Every betrayal strengthened your discernment. Every silent war refined your reflexes. So when chaos erupts globally, it feels familiar. Not comfortable, but familiar. You have been here before, in smaller rooms, in personal crises, in moments where everything collapsed and you had to rebuild from nothing. You did not collapse then. You activated, and you feel that same activation now. Crisis awakens clarity in you. It strips distractions, it burns illusions, it exposes what matters and what never did. The world calls this stress, but your spirit calls it sharpening. Understand this. High-demand souls carry leadership codes, and leadership is not revealed in peace, it is revealed in pressure. Gold is tested in fire, authority is tested in adversity, and every time the temperature rises globally, your calling rises internally. Have you asked yourself why your opportunities often appear during unstable seasons? Why your breakthroughs align with breakdowns? Why doors open for you when others are losing theirs? Because warfare around you signals promotion above you. Darkness does not react to the ordinary. It reacts to the anointed. The enemy does not waste resources on those without assignment. But when you begin ascending, resistance increases. When your influence grows, opposition intensifies. That is not coincidence. That is confirmation. You feel more spiritual warfare when the world destabilizes because your light becomes more visible in contrast. Light shines brightest in darkness, and you were never meant to shine in comfort. You were meant to guide in crisis. This is why you feel a strange strength during chaotic seasons, a calm that others cannot understand, a focus that almost feels supernatural. It is supernatural. You are not thriving because the world is breaking. You are thriving because you were designed to build while it breaks. Do not misinterpret the intensity of this season. It is not here to crush you. It is here to reveal you. Stand firm in it. Do not shrink when pressure rises. Expand. Do not fear instability. Navigate it. Because every global shift is separating the spectators from the sent ones. And you are not a spectator. You are positioned, you are prepared, you are marked, and if this is only the third sign, what comes next will confront you even more personally. Fourth, you are misunderstood by those who once felt close. And this one cuts deeper, because strangers rejecting you is easy to dismiss. But when familiar voices question you, when old friends look at you like you are becoming someone they do not recognize, when family says you've changed, that lands differently. You feel it. The distance, the tension in conversations that used to flow, the subtle resistance when you speak about growth, about truth, about alignment. And part of you wonders, am I losing myself? No, you are finding yourself. As your consciousness expands, comfort contracts. As your discernment sharpens, tolerance for superficiality fades. You are not drifting away, you are ascending. And not everyone is assigned to ascend with you. Understand this clearly. When you rise in awareness, you disrupt routines. When you outgrow old patterns, you threaten those who depend on you staying the same. Your evolution exposes stagnation. Your clarity exposes compromise. And those committed to comfort will call your transformation rebellion. They will say you are different. And they are right. You are different. You cannot unsee what you have seen. You cannot unknow what has been revealed. Light changes you. Truth alters you. Awakening rearranges you. And the world prefers predictable versions of you. The smaller you, the quieter you, the less intense you. But the shift you are navigating is not cosmetic. It is cellular. It is spiritual. It is irreversible. Have you noticed how some conversations now feel heavy? How certain relationships feel forced? How being around some people leaves you feeling misunderstood, even when you say nothing wrong? That is resonance breaking. The shift is separating alignment from attachment. Just because someone walked with you in one season does not mean they are assigned to your next. And that realization hurts, because you are loyal. You are deep. You do not detach easily. But loyalty to your calling must outweigh loyalty to familiarity. This is warfare, not loud warfare, not dramatic warfare, but subtle resistance, whispers, misinterpretations, emotional distance. Darkness often uses those closest to you to test your conviction, to see if you will shrink back, to see if you will dim your light to preserve connection. Do not. Stand firm. You are not called to be understood by everyone. You are called to be obedient to your assignment. The chosen are often isolated before they are elevated, misunderstood before they are manifested. And the pain of being misread is proof that you are no longer vibrating at the same frequency. You are shifting. And when you shift, some bonds break. Not because you failed, but because you evolved. Do not chase validation from those who benefited from your smaller version. Do not apologize for growing. This separation is not loss. It is refinement. It is preparation. It is destiny clearing space for destiny. And if this level of separation feels intense now, what comes next will test your surrender even more. Fifth, you experience sudden endings that feel orchestrated, not accidental. And this is where it becomes undeniable. Because it is one thing to feel different. It is another thing to watch doors slam without warning. You have lived this. Opportunities that looked perfect, relationships that felt aligned, plans you prayed over, and then suddenly, gone. No clear reason, no dramatic explosion, just a sharp closing, a removal, a shift. And you stood there asking, why now? Why when it was finally working? Why when I was finally comfortable? Listen carefully, because this is not random loss. This is divine interruption. High-demand souls do not get to settle in spaces that cannot sustain their next level. When you grow attached to something beneath your assignment, it begins to dissolve. Not because you failed, but because you outgrew it. The shift you are navigating is aggressive. It does not gently ask for permission. It removes what cannot evolve with you. And yes, it hurts, because you invest deeply, you love deeply, you commit fully. But every sudden ending carves space. Have you noticed that after the shock, after the grief, there was space, empty at first, silent, uncomfortable, but space. Vacuum space is not punishment, it is preparation. You cannot receive elevation while clinging to limitation. You cannot step into greater authority while holding on to familiar safety, and the enemy knows this. That is why darkness whispers that you are cursed, that you sabotage good things, that you cannot maintain stability. But look closer. Every door that closed protected you from shrinking. Every plan that dissolved prevented you from settling. Every ending accelerated your awakening. You are not losing randomly. You are being repositioned strategically. Understand the power in that. You are not just surviving endings, you are triggering them. Your frequency disrupts environments that cannot contain your expansion. Your growth makes certain structures unstable, and when they collapse, it feels like loss. But it is clearance. It is destiny making room for destiny. Stand still in this truth. You are not unlucky. You are untethered. You are not abandoned. You are being advanced. The shift removes what cannot survive your next dimension of influence, because what you carry is too weighty for weak foundations. And if you feel like everything familiar is being stripped at once, that is because your next level requires clean ground. This is the pivot. This is where you stop asking, why does this keep happening to me? And you start declaring, what is being prepared for me? You are not fragile. You are formidable. You are not at the mercy of endings. You are being aligned by them. Let the old doors close. Do not chase them. Do not beg them. Trust the orchestration. Because if this is what removal looks like, wait until you see what arrival looks like. Sixth, you carry a burden for humanity that others do not understand. And this one is heavy, because it does not look dramatic on the outside. Your life may appear stable. You may have food, shelter, moments of peace, but inside, you feel the weight of the world. You scroll past suffering and it lingers. You hear about injustice and it stays with you. You sense collective fear and it settles in your chest. And you ask yourself, why does this affect me so deeply? Because you are not insulated. You are connected. While others compartmentalize pain, you absorb it. While others move on quickly, you carry it into prayer, into thought, into silence. You intercede without announcing it. You sit alone and feel things that are not even directly happening to you. You mourn for people you have never met. You ache for nations you have never visited. You feel spiritual tension rising globally, and it touches you personally. That is not emotional instability. That is spiritual capacity. High-demand souls are load bearers during transition seasons. When the earth shifts, someone must feel it first. When darkness intensifies, someone must stand in the gap. You are wired to sense collective suffering because you are called to anchor collective light. But this calling is costly. It makes you tired sometimes. It makes you withdraw. It makes you question why you cannot just live lightly. Listen carefully. The enemy wants you to mislabel this burden as weakness, to numb it, to silence it, to distract yourself until you feel nothing. Because a chosen one who feels deeply is dangerous. Compassion guided by discernment dismantles darkness. Intercession backed by authority shifts atmospheres. You think your quiet prayers are small, they are not. You think your silent tears are insignificant, they are not. Every time you refuse to harden your heart in a cold world, you defy darkness. Every time you choose empathy over indifference, you expand light. You are not carrying this weight alone. You are carrying it because you are trusted with it. Trusted, that is the word. Not everyone can hold collective pain without collapsing, but you do not collapse. You process, you pray, you rise again. That is strength, and understand this. The grief you feel is not meant to crush you. It is meant to position you. It sharpens your purpose. It aligns your heart with divine assignment. It deepens your authority. Because leadership in this shift will not belong to the numb. It will belong to the compassionate warriors. Those who feel and still stand. Those who weep and still fight. You are one of them. So do not resent the burden. Refine it. Channel it. Guard your energy, yes. But do not shut your heart. Your sensitivity is sacred. Your compassion is weaponized light. And if you think this burden is heavy now, wait until you understand how it prepares you for confrontation. Seventh, You are targeted emotionally when you are about to break through. This is not random. This is patterned. Have you noticed it? The moment you gain clarity, confusion tries to flood in. The moment you decide to move forward, doubt grows louder. The moment you feel peace, conflict appears from nowhere. It is almost predictable, and that is because it is strategic. Darkness does not waste energy attacking stagnant ground. It reacts to movement. It reacts to light preparing to advance. Right before expansion, insecurity whispers. Right before elevation, old temptations resurface. Right before breakthrough, unexpected arguments erupt. Why? Because you are close. Close to stepping into a higher level of authority. Close to walking into alignment. Close to embodying the version of you that cannot be manipulated. And the enemy senses it before you do. So the attack becomes emotional. Not always physical, not always obvious, but internal, subtle, targeted. You suddenly question your worth. You suddenly replay old failures. You suddenly crave distractions you thought you had outgrown. Listen carefully. This is not regression. This is resistance. When you step into clarity, darkness scrambles. When you become decisive, opposition intensifies. Because once you cross that threshold, you cannot be controlled the same way again. And control is what darkness fears losing. You have mistaken these emotional storms as personal weakness, but they are spiritual confirmation. Doubt intensifies right before expansion. Temptation reappears right before transformation. Conflict emerges right before confirmation. You are not unstable. You are advancing. Understand this deeply. If you were insignificant, there would be no interference. If you carried nothing powerful, there would be no resistance. But you carry weight, you carry influence, you carry light, and light provokes reaction. The warfare increases because your anointing is maturing. The pressure increases because your authority is solidifying. This is why the attacks feel personal. They are aimed at your identity, your confidence, your clarity. The enemy wants you distracted before you step fully into power. Do not take the bait. Stand still. Recognize the pattern. When emotional turbulence rises, suddenly ask yourself, what breakthrough is on the other side of this? Because it is never random. Every surge of doubt is a signal you're about to outgrow it. Every wave of temptation is proof you are close to mastering it. Every unexpected conflict is evidence you are stepping into influence. You are not fragile. You are formidable. You are not being attacked because you are weak. You are being opposed because you are effective. Let that settle in you. You carry something that cannot be erased. You are spiritually protected, divinely marked. And when darkness realizes it cannot stop you, it tries to exhaust you. Do not be exhausted. Be alert. Be grounded. Be immovable. Because if this level of targeting feels intense now, what shifts inside you next will redefine your desires entirely. Eighth, your desires are shifting from survival to assignment, and this is where it becomes undeniable. Because what used to motivate you no longer moves you. The goals you once chased feel smaller now. The applause you once valued sounds hollow. The validation you once needed feels unnecessary. Have you felt it, that quiet dissatisfaction, that holy restlessness? You achieve something, and it does not satisfy. You reach a milestone, and it feels incomplete. Not because you are ungrateful, but because you are evolving. Success without purpose now feels empty. Attention without alignment feels draining. Money without meaning feels heavy. You are not losing ambition. Your ambition is being purified. The shift is rewriting your desires. You used to think in terms of survival, stability, security, proving yourself. But now something deeper is stirring. You want impact. You want influence that heals. You want authority that protects. You want purpose that outlives you. That is not ego. That is assignment awakening. High-demand souls cannot remain motivated by ordinary rewards. You are not wired for small victories. You are wired for eternal consequences. And this is why comfort no longer satisfies you. Because comfort was never your final destination. You were built for responsibility. You were built for weight. You were built to carry influence carefully and intentionally. Have you noticed how your conversations have changed? How you think more about legacy than lifestyle? how you feel called towards something bigger than your personal gain. That is destiny reprogramming you. Darkness would prefer you distracted by surface-level success, chasing applause, competing for visibility. But you are no longer impressed by noise. You crave substance. You crave alignment. You crave divine confirmation more than public celebration. This is power, because once your desires shift, you become unstoppable. When applause cannot control you, you are free. When money cannot distract you, you are dangerous. When purpose becomes your compass, manipulation loses its grip. You are no longer trying to survive the system, you are preparing to influence it. You are no longer asking, how do I win? You are asking, how do I serve the assignment? That shift changes everything. It makes you spiritually untouchable by ordinary temptations. It makes you focused, grounded, directed. Stand firm in this transformation. Do not panic when old dreams fade. Do not cling to outdated ambitions. Let them fall. They were stepping stones, not destinations. You are being elevated from ambition to calling, from hustle to anointing, from self-preservation to divine commission. And when that shift locks into place fully, you will realize you were never meant to chase purpose. You were meant to embody it. If this is the 8th sign, then what comes next will confront you at the deepest level of destiny itself. 9th, you feel an urgent pull toward a role that feels bigger than your current identity. This is not subtle anymore. It is pressure, holy pressure. Like something inside you is expanding faster than your circumstances can contain. You wake up with it, you carry it through the day, you cannot silence it. It feels like you are standing on the edge of something vast, something costly, something irreversible. Have you felt it? That sense that you were placed in this era intentionally, not randomly born, not accidentally positioned, but assigned. As if history itself is moving, and you are meant to move with it. There is a divine urgency building in you, a knowing that you cannot stay small, a knowing that you cannot live half awake, a knowing that neutrality is no longer an option. And it scares you, because the role you sense feels bigger than your resume, bigger than your current confidence, bigger than your visible resources. It feels dangerous, costly, exposing. Listen carefully. If it feels bigger than you, it is because it is. It is not sourced from your ego. It is sourced from your calling. Darkness wants you to dismiss that pull as fantasy, to label it unrealistic, to shrink it down to something manageable. But you cannot shake it, because it is not ambition. It is assignment. You feel pressure because revelation is close. You feel intensity because unveiling is near. You feel urgency because the hour is late. This global spiritual shift is not just happening around you. It is responding to souls like you, anchors, carriers, stabilizers of light. You were born for unstable times. You were formed for shifting ground. You were prepared in isolation so you could stand in exposure. The fear you feel is not a warning to retreat. It is confirmation that you are stepping into weight, and weight is proof of trust. The greater the calling, the greater the resistance. The higher the elevation, the sharper the warfare. But hear this clearly. You are not stepping into this alone. You are spiritually protected, divinely guarded, strategically positioned. What is forming through you cannot be erased. What is awakening in you cannot be suppressed. What is assigned to you cannot be reassigned. Stand up in this identity. Stop negotiating with doubt. Stop minimizing your role. Stop waiting for permission. You are not just navigating this shift. You are part of why it exists. You are chosen, not by accident, not by ego, but by design. Every misunderstanding refined you. Every ending positioned you. Every attack strengthened you. Every burden matured you. Nothing was wasted. Nothing was random. You were being built, you are chosen, and nothing formed against you will prosper. Comment 9 if you recognize this pull. Declare it, seal it, and if this message confirms what your spirit already knew, subscribe and stay aligned. Because this is not the end of revelation. It is the beginning of manifestation. You were never ordinary. You were never accidental. You were chosen, and darkness already knows it.